But we have to move to Horseshoe Bay.
Lot
Wait,
going on in Horseshoe Bay.
Yeah,
there
very
is,
much.
but I have to say, I was disappointed it wasn't an A state. Like, I really, when they
Mm.
showed George, I was like, oh, girl, did you crash it? Because I was
What are you doing here?
But George was picking up on the vibes
she was, because
Yeah.
when Ace was cleaning the windshield. And I don't remember what Nancy said, but she looked out at Ace and George was like, oh, I saw that.
Yeah.
I think she said, I have people in Horseshoe Bay. And then she was like,
Yeah.
just staring at Ace,
Yeah,
and George
my
was
would you
like,
say my people in Horseshoe Bay or something?
yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah, my people are
It's
in Horseshoe Bay. Possessiveness of my. And then
yeah.
yeah.
When I first saw that scene, I was like, "Oh, such a growthful moment for Nancy," because like in season one, it was just her. These people might help her, but she did not like acknowledge them. And I was like, "Ah, she's finally acknowledged them as their people." And then there was that like that glance to S, and I was like, "Are you acknowledging your people or your person?" And then
Ooh, I
the
like
fact
that.
and the fact that he kind of looked back at her as well, like at the end of the day, Nancy Drew's been very subtle with the Nace references, but that wasn't subtle. And I think we can say that nothing about season 3 has been subtle so far, especially in the next episode, which we'll get to. But like, oh, even though it wasn't a Nace date, the Nace crumbs were there. And can we even call them crumbs at this point?
it was a meal because
Oh
they were
yeah,
also touching more than they typically do. There
yeah.
was no reason for her to pull him back from that door that was closing in whatever that abandoned building was. But we were clutching. And I was like, oh, it's like, okay, clocking it. I see we are ramping up this like physicality, and I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm.
Was this the episode 2 where Nancy falls off the ledge?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, she falls off the ledge, and I was like, Ace is never gonna let this girl fall,
No,
and he didn't.
and then she like rested on him for a second or right beside him. I feel like the only reason George was there was to observe. George was us. She was notching the Nace moments. Like, I see what you're doing. I feel like that was the only reason she was there. Because like there were a lot to observe in that, and like, okay, they kind of died out when they got to Detective Con, which is what the episode was all about. It was an interesting structured episode, the way we had like 2 mini plots within in one episode. But like, as far as they were in that factory, lots of Nace moments to say.
I have to say, I never tire of the trope where like, oh, we fell and we're on top of each other, and it's a weird moment. Like no matter how many times I see it, like it's in every romantic comedy. I feel like it to me it never gets old, and we needed a nice one, and off the checklist, check, we did it.
It is fantastic. I think what's also great though is they end the episode together. They're the last two at
Yeah.
Detective Con, which I'm just gonna jump forward just a bit because I just think it's interesting that those two are the last two. And we get the full story of what happened to, I believe the man's name was Joe. And it turns out to be a love story. And I was like, two people that probably are going, well, not probably, we kind of know what happens in season 3 that are going to end up together are together listening to a love story that transcended race and has transcended time. So I'm just looking.
I didn't see that reveal coming because I
Mhm.
feel like I missed something along the way of what was his name? Joe
Joe Kelsey.
Kelsey. Joe
Yeah.
Kelsey. I feel like I missed something early on, and when they were piecing together like that he was innocent, I was confused about what the ghost was showing them. It's like I don't I think I don't know, maybe it's definitely a me problem. It wasn't the show. Like I think I missed something or I missed a detail, and I was kind of like, I don't know where this is going. I don't fully understand the mission, but I trust Nancy to get me there, and she got me there at the end.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was like confused with the whole episode of that story. But I love how they always give Ace the I don't want to say funny, but it's usually funny because it's Ace. They give him like the different voices to do. Like he was George's great aunt or something.
Mhm.
Like and that was kind of funny. Like they always give it to Ace, and it's his physicality as with the way the ghost was like haunting him from the inside, and he's just like in the chair. He's like, yeah, I'll just stay here, fighting for his life.
I think with Joe, it's the it was confusing, but I think it's more so because they've never dealt with a ghost who was trying to lie to you about what happened because he's
Mhm.
stuck in the moment of the crime that he did not commit. So he's trying to hide it in order to protect the podcaster's grandmother. I was like, oh, this story is it's heartbreaking, but it's also very sweet. And I do love they have that one moment where when she's sitting next to him, Ace is fine. So it's like they're alluding to it, because when she hands him the cookies, he is actually better. But he's better because Joe feels good being around the woman that he loved. So like, they're just sitting there, and he's like, and Ace was like, why do I feel better? And I was like, it's not the cookies, it's her.
It all came together really nicely, and I think by the end of the episode, when we'll talk about that, we talk about how like Nancy helped solve another murder, or they caught the killer, but at the end of the day they solved another one as well, even though it was they didn't do anything about it. But they figured this they handled the two like storylines together quite well. Like there was a lot to do, considering we had two different locations, two mini episodes, and two storylines. The show managed to handle it all quite well, and I agree. I do like the fact it ended with a big like Nace reveal, while the two of them, the thing they do best is be like detectives together. Of course, we know the storyline's going somewhere, but they were very much at the heart of why this mystery got solved, and that was such a powerful ending. But yeah, I just wanted to say that I love how this episode managed to juggle so much, including catching who we believe, or at least thought, was the Frozen Hearts killer.
I love that. I always love being duped by this show. Like Nancy's like, oh, I'm gonna go to my car, and I'm like, why did you take that route to go to your car, Nancy? The decision making isn't, great today. But when she opens the door and it's the cops, I'm like, I always doubt Nancy, but she's always 3 steps ahead of me. But the podcaster, I thought it was so funny. This isn't a drag. It was just, my thoughts while watching it. When Nancy gives her the box of things that are from Beth, but she won't let go of it until the podcaster, Lacey, gives up the name of the Frozen Hearts killer. But previously to that, she didn't want to publicly state the name, but here they are in this room. There's people behind Nancy, and she's just like, I could hear the echo. I'm like, these people in the room can hear you. You're not whispering the identity of the killer. I just thought it was funny, like unimportant, like low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
But I'm watching that scene, and I'm like, girl, you're practically yelling it out loud. Like, what if he was in the room and he was like,
yeah,
she knows, let me leave. I will not stay around.
Yeah.
But that was a big reveal when we found out he was in the room, because I know I have a vague idea of the season that the Frozen Hearts killer storyline is going to go on for at least the majority of the season. So when we found out that he was there with them, and then I was like, oh, this is getting very episodic, like they're going to suddenly tie it up. And then they did tie it up, only they didn't tie it up. So much going on. And it's like Reed said, they love to pull the wool over our eyes so many times, and so effective.
It was. I love also how they decide to catch him, the plan that really is sort of even a bait and switch for the audience. But Nancy being on a hot mic being like, he's a loser. He's terrible. He's messy.
She called that man out.
Yes.
And they were like in the audience trying to find him, and they get they see the sketchy guy, and I'm like, oh God, not this serial killer being hot. but it's the guy, it's the planted guy with the sandwich coupon or whatever. I was like, thank the Lord. I can't thirst over a serial killer in the show.
Oh man, but that was
I was worried in that moment. I was like, oh no.
I did not think that man was making it out of there, and then thank goodness that wasn't him. But then the real serial killer didn't make it out of there either. But I laughed so hard at that, because they threw in that silly line of dialogue when they were all there. If you catch the real serial killer, you get the prize or whatever. And then they went and caught the fake serial killer. That was so effective. But then they went and caught the real one. Yeah, this episode pivoted so much between like lightheartedness and like darkness, very, very, very seamlessly. Like even like Reed's head with the physical comedy, while this man was possessed and practically dying and burning from the inside out. But sure, let's have some time so we can do all these strange movements and like get up and fall over. Alex, who plays Ace, great physical actor, but just generally, he so is. But just everything about this episode was just, I love this episode, I have to say. On paper, it was very like standalone, but it wasn't.
Yeah, somehow they always balance these episodes with it's always so dramatic. When they uncover like these cases, and it's like this one was really heavy and deep, but we also got the levity of George finding out she's a low-key celebrity at Detective Con because her sister's writing fanfic. Like it was also like cute, and everything comes around full circle into a way that just it feels like a hug at the end of it, which is necessary after you get into these mysteries that are so deeply seated in generational trauma constantly. I don't know how they do it.
I don't know either, because it still turns out being like heartwarming even after like you're like, yes, it's tragic what happened to Jill, but then you hear Lacey, right?
Yeah.
Lacey's grandmother talk about her relationship with Joe and how like they would meet at the motel and they had to hide their relationship, and little history drop about how it was is decades before Loving versus Virginia, so they could not be together. I was like, oh my god, I like how am I love them so much. And then when they showed when I love how they both just accept that his ghost appears. I was like, yes, just accept it because he's saying goodbye. Like, but like when the match strikes and they get to see him and he's gonna pass on now and she has closure, and I'm just like, this is so beautiful. And like, and it was only 5 minutes worth of story.
It was such a Ghost Whisperer moment.
I was gonna say that. Yes, it was. It's like,
Except
where are we doing this?
They completely. I feel like most Ghost Whisperer episodes are like, the ghost isn't here. You're crazy. What are you talking about? But like Sabrina said, like they just accept it, and I was like, thank you, thank you.
I mean, I guess seeing him still young kind of did that for them. But I know it's like it's okay for Nancy and all of her ones to accept that ghosts are real, but I was like, these people accepted ghosts very, very quickly. But like you said, I guess it's because we saw him. But yeah, very ghostless moment. He didn't quite walk into the light so much as he just like turned to dust, but that's Nancy's way of doing it. Very effective. And it was a nice moment in what was an otherwise quite dark but funny episode.
I'm still on the Aces of Hardy Boy. Like I just trained. Like they ended with the two of them and her telling him that she's missed something because the killer said that there's that is bigger than him. And I was like, I'm hearing you, Nancy, but also I'm looking at you and Ace, and I'm getting Nancy Drew and Hardy Boy vibes.
I wonder, and I didn't think of this until this moment. Kind of jumping ahead to episode 4. I wonder if this is connected somehow. Maybe not, because we haven't talked about the plot of episode 4 yet. But Ace is still involved in this Bobsy mess. And I wonder, like, how big this goes. I don't know.
I'm nervous about it. I'm very nervous about whatever's happening with those chocolates. Like, because there's no real explanation for it. I mean, the DA goes into like the case and what they're trying to track down, but I was like, Bess warned you and now we're caught up.
I loved how Bess's vibe in 3 and 4 was like, I told you all this, I said what I said, no one listened to me. If you listen to me, and I'm like, you could pop off, Bess.
Yeah.
When he said that he felt like she was mothering him, and I was like, well, you know what, Ace? She needed to.
Yes.
And she agreed. She immediately says that next. You needed it. And he still needs it.
But I feel like Bess was well within her rights to react like that. I will say sometimes Nancy subverts expectations. I thought they maybe went a little bit of the predictable route that people suddenly started treating Bess a little disrespectfully out of the blue. So, but regardless, it worked nonetheless. She absolutely deserved to have that reaction because they were ignoring her, they were leaving her out. And she was right. She had that feeling. That was more subtle in the previous episode. She had that feeling that they all just kind of abandoned her. And you did feel for her when, like, even then Nick went out to the youth centre and that she was just left in the claw on what seemed was it a day off. I don't know. The claw was quiet and she was just on her own. So I appreciate where she's coming from. Not entirely sure she's well within her rights there to be working with Temperance and saying, she's not so bad. But
oh yeah, that is like, there's smoke.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a fire, I feel like. Yeah. And I wouldn't even mind, because I love a little bit of mess, if they went the like Buffy season 6 Dark Willow route with Bess, where like she clearly has some sort of power. She's tapped into something within her, or Temperance is teaching her how to access that. And sometimes when you wield power, heavy is the head that wears the crown, and she might be like, she might go a little too far. And I'd love to see that where where they need to reel her back in after she's like on her high horse now because she was the one that saved them this time. And I don't know if that's a first. She's definitely been a team player. Which she does say, like, she's like, was that her? Where she was like, I've helped all of these things, like I can do this. But like seeing her come into her own and be the one that's like, I'm gonna save y'all on this stream and I'm gonna kill this person because guess what? My new friend, you might like my problematic queen, is teaching me how to be magic.
She had a very the craft moment where we're
Yeah.
like calling the clouds and the lightning. I do think you're right. She might end up power tripping because she struck a ghost with lightning on her own. Like after like getting Ryan to place the crowbar like a lightning rod there. And I was like, oh, Bess, I'm into it. But also, Bess, I do want you to slow down and listen to what Nancy said because last pod, when Michael and I were talking about magic, I had said there's a cost to it. Nancy said today in that episode, sorry, is there's a cost to it. Bess is not thinking about the cost. I said, girl, you have to give something back to magic. You can't just keep taking from it. It will take from you.
And they've learned that lesson before. And I loved you mentioned Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
There's always a price. It reminds me too of Shadow and Bone, because like once Alina comes into her magic and she gets the amplifiers, at least excuse me, at least in the books, she continues to want more. It feels good to be powerful. Like I want more. And they get to that line where I could cross it and wield way too much power, or I can keep resisting this thing. And I think it'll be a bumpy ride for Bess. I'm excited because
And
Madison was so good in
Oh,
this
it was
episode.
an incredible moment, and I was so happy for Bess that I kind of wanted to stay with it a little longer because suddenly, as soon as she did the big witchy moment, it was over. But like, I just wanted us to stand and appreciate the grandeur of Bess. But I also do worry that it'll end up a bit like the Parasite route, and even like Superman and Lois with Ollie Austin. You saw the same. The more power they get, the more they want, and the only way of stopping them is to overload them with that power. And then they're like, "Well, bad idea." So I hope it doesn't go that route. But I wonder if it'll be that she goes on kind of like a power trip now, and I don't necessarily mean that in a physical kind of way, because she did say at the end that everyone needs to take my idea seriously as much as Nancy's. And while I do appreciate that, the reason the Drew crew always works is that Nancy is the leader. Everybody else does things that Nancy can't, but she's the detective among them. She's the one that gets things done. I the reason I love the Drew crew more than I love Team Flash is because everyone's like, oh, Team Flash, everybody's the leader. And they're like, no, the Flash is the leader. Everybody else needs to play their roles. And I just worry now that the power might go to her head, and that if Nancy has a good idea, now she'll be like, I'm not doing that, and you should have listened to me before, so listen to me now. She was right in the situation, and she deserved to be listened to, and they treated her with such disrespect. But I don't want it to get to the case where she starts clashing with everybody else's good ideas, if that makes sense. Because we did see in previous seasons, Bess can be a little bit impulsive as well.
And she can be vulnerable, and when you're vulnerable you can be easy to be preyed upon. So I think Temperance will also take advantage of that, although Bess does have kind of a new girl in her life. Addie, is that her name? So I feel like we're gonna see not a love triangle, but like she's gonna be in the middle of this, hopefully, or maybe not, I don't know. But I also love the dynamic too between Bess and Ryan when they're like
Yeah.
giddy over. I watched it like 3 times because it was so funny. Whatever they say when Bess is they plan to save them from their dreams. I don't know. Their dynamic being like giddy little kids together. Like Bess finally found someone who's like at her level. And it was so cute. I also too, we've been standing Ryan pretty hard for the past few episodes. But just seeing him in Nick's youth center, I'm like, he's healing his inner child, and my heart swelled up. Like I was like, this is like sometimes you can see like the maneuvers in the writing where like, oh, we created this new set and this character really has nothing to do. Let's just pop him in. But it feels so natural and organic that he needs to find a purpose outside of his name, outside of his family. And his life has been so guarded and horrible, like being around these terrible old money dynamics, and being able to find a part of him that had been suppressed beyond his own decision making You could just see the lightness come out of Ryan now, even when he's, poking fun at Carson too and getting to spend time with Nancy. So there's my standing Ryan moment for the episode.
No, I totally agree. Like with the moment at the end, I didn't expect him to get so emotional over it so quickly, which was such a like, oh, Ryan. Like when Nick said that they thought the world of you and that they talk to you and they see you as a pair, it meant it so much to him because of course we Nick said there's so much about how the kids need someone, but we didn't I don't think we all realized how much Ryan needed something, how Ryan needed a calling. And it's been very much played for laughs until this point, but you saw how much it meant to him, how much he wants to change, how much he wants to grow, and how he may finally have found his purpose. And then the reputation of being a bad person when you're surrounded by bad people doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. And I think we're really starting to see Ryan flourish as a person now without any negative influences around him. And I can't wait to see where that goes. It's such a subtle storyline and probably won't get the forefront of anything, but just as Ryan stands, I want the best for him and I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah, he doesn't deserve to have a bad reputation by
Yeah.
proxy. So
No, I mean he did deserve some of it.
he does. But
Yeah.
like toward the end, it was clear that he wasn't involved in the Hudson
Yeah.
family crime ring.
That's true. But what I love about the moment between him and Nick is that there seems to be a subtle acknowledgement that at risk tends to be class-based, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Like Ryan was an at-risk youth. Yes, he had a lot of money, but he was neglected and it made him act out. And no, he didn't end up in prison, but that's by virtue of having very powerful parents. Like it's his circumstances that kept him out of trouble, not necessarily his actions, right? So I just think that he can bond with these kids because he too knows what it's like to have parents who aren't really there for you or treat you like an obligation or to feel unheard or not to be given for your ideas to be given anyway. And he's like sitting crisscross applesauce eating cookies with these kids like, hey, what's up? And like we're just listening to them. And that's what they need. And that's exactly what Nick's youth center is for, which is why, not that I wished Jake ill, but the fact I think it's poetic that he ended up being heartless because he was heartless in life.
Very much.
You want to hear my reaction? I have a soundbite queued up.
Yes.
Here's my reaction. Here's my reaction. Let me make sure my volume's up before I do this because that would be embarrassing. Here we go. Yeah, didn't care. Didn't care.
Pop off.
I literally did that. I was like, oh, all right.
His heart's been taken. Okay. I mean, this is a man who went to the police station to complain about 12-year-olds' bikes being locked up at his establishment. I mean, should Nick get a bike rack of his own? Sure. But sir, that's a conversation to just walk over with. Like, can we store the bikes over here? Like, instead of at the cafe, it doesn't allow those patrons to be able to put their bikes if they want it. Instead, he was like, let's get the law enforcement involved.
Yeah, I love Nancy being all cheerful. I'll talk to him for you just to take the thing off. But at the same time, I thought that it was very clever the way he was seeded into the episode because when Nancy threw the pot at his head, it missed and it was turned into such a big, like both comedic but also OMG, what did you do kind of moment. When she walked away, he looked after a little like cautious, a little worried, a little concerned after she left. And at the time, I thought it was because he was afraid that she did know Nick or that she had turned against him or that the law that he was trying to use wasn't working with him. But now in hindsight, you can see, no, the reason he did that was because he knew what was going on because he was clearly being haunted by the same entity that she was. So I just feel like maybe he was seeing that his heart was taken out or whatever. But I feel like I love the fact that the Sandman was seeming to be targeting anybody, and it made it was kind of like a bottle episode because everybody was in the same place at the same time. But it was spreading. You know the way I said I hate about the Flash when things are all this exciting stuff's going on in Central City and they're sitting talking about it in Star Labs. This episode felt like you could feel the stakes, you could see the stakes. That little visit to Jake's cafe, you could see that. The fact that Nancy's seen the Sandman behind Jake in the dream. The fact that we think maybe Jake might have been haunted by it as well. Maybe he saw his own death. I don't know. But the fact is, this episode was so contained. and yet you could feel everything that was going on in Horseshoe Bay. Horseshoe Bay is such a like lively place and such a lively like character in the show, in the same way that Central City isn't on The Flash anymore. And I just thought that was so expertly done.
I love the tea.
I'm sorry, it has to be said.
The dreams and the sleepwalkings and all of it was so terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It was scary. And then seeing the effects on them in the real world from inside this, oh God, it was horrifying. Can we talk about Nancy's dream?
Yeah.
She another sexy dream.
Yeah.
She was like, that's the
I
second one
know.
of the
I was like,
series.
I was like, ooh, this is fun. And I was like, oh, she just can't even have a steamy dream in peace.
I was like,
And then she asked Ace about it. She's like, what did you dream? And he was like, well, I don't remember what his dream was, and she was like, yeah, mine was just like, yeah, I'm not dealing with some things. And I was like, we're so close. We're
you
so
can say
close.
that again. And I worried that it was a dream when he just like walked unannounced into a room. I was like, it's the middle of the night. There has to be more to it than this. And then of course there was. But like, yeah, wow, they didn't like dance around that. They threw you right into that scene, and then just the tension and the stakes went up, and then
I was so willing to believe it too. I was
I
like,
You're
know, I was
just
like,
waiting.
I was like, it's happening, it's happening.
Well, I love how they both put on, like, I mean, I know that's what ended up being what she was actually wearing, but I had thought it from the beginning that it was Dream, besides the fact that he just popped in the room like that. I was like, not them both having their good shirts on. Like, it's like she had her nice silky floral top, and then he had a nice floral top on too that was kind of like a dress shirt. And I was like, they were like, we're gonna dress y'all for this dream. We're gonna give the fans what they want for a moment and then take it away.
just a moment.
And
Mhm.
to go back to what we were talking about with Riverdale about delivering at the end of the season, I'm not even annoyed about the fact that it was a dream. I think they're teasing us excellently here. I'm not annoyed about the fact that it was a dream. I'm not annoyed about the fact that Ace is still with Amanda. I'm not annoyed about the fact that Nancy has this Agent Park thing going on, because I know where we're going and I can't wait to get there. And I am so enjoying the ride on her way to that destination, because like when they can like take really high stakes storylines where everybody is about to die and then just throw something like that into the middle of and then go, JK, excellent. I'm just having the best time watching this season.
Yeah, if you do it well, I can't fault you. And like, even if you watch this episode like removed from anything else, you're still getting the content, even if they're not
Yeah.
actually together. Like, it's still present. And I feel like it is like they're always like together geographically. So like, I don't know. We still eat even if it's just a light snack,
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. The crumbs are there all the time.
I just want to see it from Ace's perspective soon, because we're getting a lot of Nancy because she had repressed it so much, and like the door that she had locked is unlocked and it is pushing open, and she's letting it do its business, even though she's very aware he's in a relationship. But I was like, Ace, I would like to see some Nancy feelings soon. I would like to see some awkwardness, because I can't think of, besides him, caring about her immensely and wanting her to be okay and being there for her forever. I want to see some Ace gazing. I would like to
Yeah.
see him gaze
Yeah.
at Nancy.
Yeah.
So it's been like really subtle on his part.
Mhm.
It has. And he's kind of, when the show started, he was kind of portrayed by like as like the goofy comic relief of the show that maybe isn't all that deep. But as the show's gone on, you've seen Ace, there's just like a well inside of him. He is so deep of a character. So I can't believe that he wouldn't have picked up on anything now, especially wasn't it Amanda asked him at one point, was there anything ever going on between you two? So I do hope we get to see more of it from his perspective. And I feel like we've a whole season to get there, I think. So I hope so, because at the end of the day, their scenes together are just amazing. And just don't tell me he didn't feel anything the way she's been feeling things in those last few scenes.
Oh, he
No.
felt it. But
Oh,
we're
yeah.
gonna get probably some Ace movement in episode 5 with Carson finding out that he's
Mm.
involved in the Bobsy thing. It's like, I can explain. I was like, boy.
I know that was such a tense scene. I love it when they bring in the like tech nerd, but the tech nerd is actually the person responsible for that. We knew what was going to load because they've been doing a good job telling us that this man went into this warehouse and came back out and to an associate. We knew that what picture was going to load there, and the fact that they made us wait. I don't know why it was such terrible quality to begin with, but the fact that they made us wait as the quality improved, and Carson over Ace's shoulder, I was like, shut the laptop, shut the laptop, shut the laptop. That man did not shut the laptop. He waited. He knew his time was up, so to speak, and he waited. And that, bless him, that like naive but like, oh dear kind of look at Carson. Oh my goodness. Carson and Ace are such a good double act that we don't see enough. So I hope we get some good content from the next episode.
And Sabrina, didn't you say last week that just because Ace kicked him out of the car doesn't mean that it's over? Like that's yeah, that was not he made the right choice, but it's not, he didn't finish that.
Yeah, because he's talking about it, about how, I think in the previous episode, or maybe it was in episode 4, where he said I think it was to Bess, I threw him out the car, like it's over. I was like, it's not over. When is it? In what world is that ever? I mean, subconsciously he knew that, hence why his nightmares were about him being in the warehouse with bloody knuckles. He had a feeling that the man that Mr. Bobs went to see was not in excellent condition. Like he's aware of that, didn't ask any questions. And I was like, I'm so sorry, but we're going to have to use all of our resources to save you, because once again, you were caught up in some BS. It's just not, because this is the second time. Last time it was because he was trying to find his brother.
Yeah.
And
I kind of want to, is this bad? I kind of want to see like feral Ace. Like I want to see if Ace can fight.
Ooh.
Like,
I feel like no.
Punch? But I don't know. Like, he's got the muscles. Like we've seen them in a couple scenes. Like I want to. Can Ace fight when it gets down to it? I kind of want to see it.
I don't think so, but I kind of want him to. I want him to be able to at least, give you a good few punches. Like he may not be able to carry the fight, but I'd love for him to be scrappy.
Yeah, like I'm just imagining a scene where like Ace has to fight and Nancy's there and she's like surprised and she's like, yeah, I can do that. I just don't.
Now we've had a few of those scenes where Ace is revealed like a hidden talent, and it just cuts to Nancy, who's like watching him in like bemusement or bewilderment or awe or whatever.
She's like, continues to surprise her, and I love that, because like when you surprise Nancy, like you can't, that's not easy thing to do, like to surprise Nancy, but Ace always does.
He does.
So I don't want to see Ace in danger, even though he is, but like I think it would be like a funny and also a character development moment to be like, he's like this chill, easygoing, laid back, like seemingly pacifist dishwasher line cook, but like he can get into a scrap. He just doesn't.
Maybe he will surprise us and Nancy then, because could you imagine if it was like he does carry the fight and he's just like, yeah, so I used to get in trouble in elementary school for fighting, and I kind of leveled up in middle school. I chilled out in high school because dad was like, you will end up in juvie. And he's just like, all right, because I know, I kind of like it, you're right, let's have it.
I don't want it. He doesn't need to be like Riverdale Archie, where like he throws himself into like he actively searches for fights because he wants to be in pain, because that's a whole other discussion about Archie's traumas. He wanted pain inflicted on himself. Anyway, didn't mean to get into that, but like I don't want it to be that. Like I just want it to be like the way that Nancy Drew pulls these punches on us, where it's like, oh, that's surprising, but it's still kind of light. And yeah, I think it would be fun. Somebody tell us in the comments if we get a taste of that, or if I'm just like daydreaming. I've been watching too much of The Night Agent.
Speak that into existence, Reed. I know, but I'm eager to see what kind of trouble S is in. Is he in trouble with the law, or will he be in trouble with Amanda's father more going forward? Because I feel like the second one's more interesting to me, because at the end of the day, if you know S, him picking his father-in-law up, it's not that big a deal. He could say he saw the blood on his hands and told him to get out of the car and hasn't seen him since. If you're working with Carson, I think he'll be fine. But of course, there's the danger what'll happen going forward. But I just want to, I think now's a good moment to praise this episode. I think from the top down, every intricate part of this episode was so planned out right from the beginning. I always say it's like we do a two-parter right at the right time. It carried over from the last week, or the last episode, about how they were exhausted after being interviewed over the serial killer. And then I saw S yawned, and him and Nancy yawned at the same time, and they both just kind of walked past each other like, sup? As though we've been through the trenches together, but we're not going to talk about it now. And then Carson getting affectionate towards the DA, who is also investigating the Frozen Hearts killer case, but at the same time she's investigating this case, which leads S and Carson back into each other's lives. Every single part of this episode from top through end was planned out, and it tied into the overall story, in spite of the fact it was very much a standalone episode. excellently done. I can't wait to see where any of the stories go next. But I don't even know if it's one of my favorite episodes of Nancy Drew, because every single one of episodes of Nancy Drew is one of my favorites. But I feel like we get so used to how good this show is, it's easy to overlook it at this point. But I just thought this episode juggled everything excellently.
I think it
I have
also
3 more. Oh no, you go. I have 3 more Ace things that I want to get to.
yeah, mine are ace things, but I just also think that it did well to seed plots I think that we're gonna deal with George and Nick. Like Nick's fear that he poured all of himself into this youth center and it's not going to go in the direction that he wanted, because he's finally feels like he has a purpose. And he has been a character who's felt lost for a lot of the series. And it makes sense for him to feel like, what if this is the thing that also doesn't work out? Because things don't tend to work out for him. And then George's fear that Nick is only getting married to her because she has a decade left to live. And I'm just like, oh, I'm just like, these are D plots, because I would love to like have like these small scenes with them for them to sort of untangle their like what's going on in their psyches. Like subconsciously, does George really feel like Nick doesn't want to be with her at this point in time, to be married at least? And does Nick really feel that perhaps he did waste his time with the youth center, or is he just concerned he's trying to make things work in Horseshoe Bay when he should be elsewhere?
I mean, and there is a lot, like you're right, that was very much like the D plot of the episode, and that it was like subtle scenes, very, very, very small ones. But at the end of the day, again, ties right back into the overall storyline between the two. And I would like to see that explored more, because I feel like George has just kind of accepted the fact that she has like 10 years to live, and they throw it in like a line of dialogue here and there. And I feel like Nick's youth center will obviously continue to be an important part, and then he'll have that big moment where he'll remember what he's doing is the right thing, and then he's using his money for a good cause. But I agree, I feel like there's more growth with that. Just like, of course, the best kind of end of it got the biggest focus this week, while Nace and the frozen horse killer were more supporting roles. But this episode juggled everything, and I feel like every single scene in this episode will lead to something more in the season, which is why that kind of excites me for season 3. I know when it started we didn't really know where it was going, but I feel like we have more of a direction now, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that actually leads to, because like Temperance wasn't even in the episode, and she played like an important role as far as dialogue goes. So yeah, it's somehow managing to hold our interest in every storyline at the moment.
Speaking of things that will have an impact going forward, Ace still has that box of something. That was it. Bess or George wanted to dive into the box, and he was like,
Bess.
no. So there's something in there. So got to keep an eye on that. Second Ace thing, the power of his mother's cookies. I want to try one. And third, when he arrived with those handcuffs.
And they gave him
my
that
God.
look.
That
And
look
he's
of
like,
amusement.
he's like, my dad's a cop. What? But no, you're right. I actually don't remember if that was Bess or George about the chocolates. He just tossed it in the back. But he always has great one-liners. There's another Ace moment right before he has to tell Carson, like, it's I need help. But when Carson's like, with all the stuff that you know, you could be a billionaire, and Ace is like, who says I'm not? Carson didn't know what to do.
Ace is definitely, he has like some shoe boxes of money in the floorboards, and like he's been investing since he was 15. Like I believe it.
Totally buy that from him. But then also, wasn't it the one-liner? Again, dramatic episode. Everybody wakes up with cuts and bruises, and Bess is bleeding from her eyes. Is that the price, by the way? Because she wasn't injured in her dream that much. So is that a price for her? But like all of the serious stuff going on, and then Ace is just like, does anybody remember where we put the keys of the handcuffs? I love that, man.
Was that the act break too? Like a cut to
I
the
think so, yeah.
commercial?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. And then they come back and they're all just out of it. I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, Ace. I love that man.
Institute is such a great show. Just really, truly a wonderful, wonderful show. I'm actually getting sad the closer we're getting to being caught up for season 4.
Gonna say that too. These episodes just like randomly hit me. I was like, because it was giving me so much like old school CW vibes. I was like,
yeah,
the era's gonna end in August. And it kind of like need to appreciate every second of Nancy Drew.
Yeah. We live in the moment and have fun with it like we're doing with Riverdale.
Yes.
Yes. I feel like I know already though I'm gonna miss Nancy. Now I'm not gonna miss Riverdale. I think Riverdale's not gonna hit me until we actually get into August. Unless like where they are all the way through season 7. It's like hit after hit after hit with the episode for Riverdale. And I'll be like, well, if we could have gotten this the whole time, y'all could have
Right,
had a
yeah.
season 8.
Riverdale to me is a bit like The Flash, although it's doing a better job at the moment. Sorry, not sorry. It's like The Flash, and it's that veteran show you knew the end was coming and you're ready to let go, regardless of how good or bad it is. Whereas Nancy is more like a Stargirl situation, and then it continues to hit its prime year after year after year. And you're like, we could have had 2, 3, maybe 4 more seasons of this, and it feels wrong that it's stuffed out. But even at that, I have no doubt that the writers will make it feel like this 4-season story was supposed to be how it was from the beginning, because they just keep knocking it out of the park every episode, every season. And the fact that we basically have 2 full seasons left to go excites me. I know not everyone does because they're all waiting on season 4 to start, but I'm just living in the moment for season 3 before we eventually do the same thing for season 4.
Yeah. And there's something about less than 5 seasons that feels like we're a little bit cheated or like it's a little unfair. But that's not always true, because sometimes there can be a great series that ends too soon, but 3 was all they needed and it was iconic regardless. But it does kind of feel like, we could have just gotten to 5. That would have felt like such a huge like legacy for this underdog show, kind of like Dynasty, where 5 seasons, 100+ episodes later, that's remarkable to me. But yeah, I wish we gotten one more, but thankful for that we got anything at all.
Yeah,
true. I do want to manifest something though, because I want a Nancy Drew movie. I feel like if we're gonna do low cost things, I feel like a Nancy Drew movie wouldn't have to cost a lot. Like they could just do practical effects. We already have the writers and the actors like to get together. Like, why not do a Nancy Drew holiday film? Like instead of the Waltons.
Halloween special.
Yeah. Hey, we did say this about Tom Swift, that you could see like Tom Swift and something Tom Swift and like the books, like
I'm saying.
yeah.
And I always reference the show Psych, even though I don't think I've seen a full season of the show. I just have like some weird deep love for it. But though it's Nancy does give me Psych this season with the cuts to her memories of like the things. They did that in Psych where he would like cut to the things that he observed. And I really like that in the season of Nancy, because I don't think they did that in 1 and 2, right? Like the little flashes to the things that she observed.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think it's supposed to be that she's being more detective like this season, so we're seeing more of that.
So I like that angle, and it gives me Psych. And like after Psych ended, after 8 seasons, they've done 3 movies.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm like, there's a world in which standalone movies work. I feel like we can get the gang together for 2 months to film a movie in Vancouver. I don't know.
Right, yeah. And like even if there's one where you couldn't, all we need is Nancy and maybe 1 or 2 of the supporting characters. Now, I would not want that to be how the universe would end. Like, if they're going to do a 1 more movie, they should have all of them together. But like, if these movies were successful and easily distributed, you didn't need all the knowledge of the show to go into, you could do one just focused on Nancy in a different city or something. Give us something different than what the show did. That would justify it being a movie. But like we said, Nancy Drew and the Drew crew, Nancy Drew and the mystery of this, Nancy Drew and the Canaries, no kidding. But you know what I mean? Nancy Drew and Tom Swift, the crossover we never got. You know what I mean? Like just so much potential there.
Or the Cheryl spinoff. Didn't I say that somewhere? I think that was in a brainstorm with you guys that I said did I say no? Bess and Cheryl. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted them to do witchcraft together.
Yes. Oh, that'd be so fun. And they should do a Riverdale and Nancy Drew crossover. Which I mean, obviously they don't have time this season, but if we were to do a standalone movie, just send Cheryl to her shoe bay for some random reason. Like in June.
Do it. And just pretend that every CW show has existed in the same cinematic universe.
Oh my goodness, so much fun. I think CW will always be great. I just want CW to be great in the next Star era too.
Yeah.
Yep.